Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews, and convention panels. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Well, welcome one and all. I think we can get started. Yeah. What time? It's 1:02, so it's time. Welcome one and all. I'm the Grand Arbiter.
I'm Gail, Carriger.
And I'm Madame Askew.
Woo!
And listen, you can try and hide from us in the back, but we can see you.
We can't see you. We can't see you. We see you hiding, skulking back there. We'd like to welcome you to Strength of Heart, finding the romantic hero that's right for you. So Madame Askew and I had this sort of wild conversation about what kinds of panels do we want to bring, and we were like, theme. We must lean into the theme, and Madame Askew and I love, right?
Yes, we do.
The theme is heroes and villains, everybody.
Right.
You didn't know what was going on at this
unaware
convention.
of the thing you signed up for. The theme is heroes and villains. And today we're talking about romantic heroes, which are delightful in every respect.
And we heard a rumor.
Can you just hand her this?
All right.
We have to save her.
Okay. I don't actually feel like I'm working that hard to fill the space, but thank you. Thank you. So, we heard a rumor that the magnificent creature, our favorite author beast, Gail Carriger, was also going to be here. And we're like, ooh, Gail knows something about romantic heroes. I wonder if we could prevail upon her to join the panel and give us credibility. And academic gravitas, and all of the magic that Gail brings. So
Really just pretend like she likes us.
Yeah, happy to do all of this performative activity. Yes, I will
Thank
pretend like I'm an academic. I will pretend that all of it will be pretend.
So, welcome to the panel, and thank you all for being here. It's Friday, it's early in the day, and we're so happy to see you.
Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
We're just gonna trade. It's gonna be mic shuffle until we've gotten to the point where we're done with that part of the conversation. It's fine. So we have 4 archetypes that we sort of identified. Madame Askew and I were out in the laboratory doing research.
They did preliminary research for a panel, which I've been in this game for 15 years. I don't think I've ever done that. But okay.
I heard you were an academic, and we wanted to, meet your masterful
So
goal.
I like organization, and I don't like a meeting that doesn't have an agenda. And Madame Askew has a deep guttural need to get an A+ in things that you can't get grades on.
It's true.
Telling all the tales.
Yes, telling all the tales. So we've identified what we would describe as the 4 or 5 primary hero archetypes that we're going to focus on today. The 5 romantic hero archetypes we're focusing on today are the tortured hero, the servant hero, the himbo hero, the sensitive hero, and the competent hero. Yes, so there are 5 different kinds of heroes that we're going to focus on. The first one we're going to focus on is, of course, the tortured hero, also known as the Byronic hero. The tortured heroes, if you're out and about and you're like, I'm in the need of a romantic lead in my life, here are the benefits and downsides to choosing to partner up with a tortured hero.
Grand Arbiter, before you dive all the way in to that, I just want to preface that by hero, we do not mean that this person is only a masculine person. Hero is an all-encompassing romantic partner of any and every gender, just to put that clarification out there.
Do we have a third mic on the way?
Oh, I have it here.
Yes, we're having hot problems with that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Which one's having a problem?
The one that you are currently holding.
Channel 6, yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, it sounds like it's working now.
Check.
Okay, great.
Ah.
And I did fix it. With that
Okay.
one.
Woo!
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
You're all welcome.
Round of applause for Ray, everybody.
Yay!
Yes. Hey. Thank you, Patty, for facilitating the Ray and being amazing and talented and smart and pretty.
Still on? Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
Now we can talk over each other like normal.
Yes. Ideal outcomes.
Turn off the receiver.
So, yes, a hero in this particular context, we're describing a gender is less
I
relevant.
don't know which one it's going to be.
However, there's interesting, when we get down to some of the other sections, there's some interesting gender dynamics in section 3 that I'm excited about.
Is that himbos?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a real interesting gender dynamic.
Sure
there.
is, yeah.
So, the tortured hero we decided, some solid qualities. These qualities are the good qualities, the qualities you look for that are attractive. They've got hidden depths. They have places to grow.
They're nothing but depth.
Yes.
Like the depth of my T-line.
They have the biggest possible turnaround of all the heroes, of like going from difficult to like it's a bigger peak.
Character growth arc.
Growth arc is high, Everest. And then
Although they often default.
the last note says more darker. It gets your dark fantasy type stuff, rougher experiences. Spicier.
More chili peppers.
Very
I'm
spicy. Very spicy.
I would say also from purely like I would talk seriously from they're gonna be comedy and I can be serious. I would talk seriously from like a writerly perspective, which is they're also meaty to write.
Yeah.
And they are without question the most popular.
Yeah.
to
I
write.
mean, it's really easy to see why they're so popular, because the Everest, that mountain that you
Also,
have to go up.
they can be complete assholes and then get redeemed.
Yes.
And readers love that. And writers like it because it's a lot more to get our teeth into, so we like it. We like a Byronic hero. Still, for 200, 300 years, this archetype has been around and we're still big fans. It's
So
culture.
here are what we would describe as our downsides. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
You are. Oh, I hate Byronic heroes. I don't write them.
Yeah, so we're tortured hero and Byronic hero are related but not the same.
It's one of the reasons I've never had wild success in the romance industry in terms of reader bases. Most of my readers come out of science fiction and fantasy, and still do, even though I write romance, and it's because I avoid the Byronic hero in particular. It's too dark. I don't like the dark. I love the darkness.
So we have a list. I made a list of examples.
I'll give you one immediately, which is Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine is a real
Is a true Byronic hero.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the fact that the big important part is he's also unsuccessful in his romantic endeavors, which is like
common
key to the Byronic experience, at least.
Heathcliff is the classic.
Yeah, so our
Wuthering Heights.
our 5, we picked 5 examples. So Kylo Ren is a very traditional tortured hero.
Very popular right now,
'cause
especially on the TikToks.
The positive qualities are not always the thing that really define these kinds of romantic leads. The negatives are almost always more relevant.
Anakin Skywalker is a less, still exactly the same archetype.
Yeah. So you've got the qualities that makes them sort of bad is that they don't fix themselves. They generally need a motivation to fix themselves.
Externally activated.
They are wallowing in their trauma, just living there, in a swamp of sadness. They make excuses, which is a really important component that I think is very interesting in those spaces where it's a lot of oh, but I can't because of my father who's turned to the dark side.
Yes,
my
exactly.
dark past, whatever.
Exactly.
And they can, in some instances, lack empathy for other people.
Almost always, actually. They're pretty self-involved.
So our examples are Kylo Ren, Heathcliff, Catra from She-Ra, Bo from Lost Girl, and in some places Edward from Twilight are all examples of tortured heroes.
If you're a big fan of military sci-fi, military romance, suspense romance in particular, there are a lot of Byronic heroes who get saved, usually by sex with the right person. Which in heterosexual romances I call this pussy salvation.
I have questions.
Yes, Eve Riot.
From my romance advice giver, Madame Askew.
Yes.
How did you suggest going around seducing a Byronic hero?
Oh, this is an excellent question. So when I'm not luring them to the shoals of my personality, I do try and woo them out of the wakes of their despair with my ankles. So I tend to go to the shore because Byronic heroes like to read poetry by the shore. Usually it's their own and usually it's bad. And so if I
It's not even a good beach. It's one with lots of rocks.
Yes. So I just swan about and I'm like, "Ew, Kiwi, I have an ankle." And they're like, "Oh, I must make an ode to your ankle." I'm like, "All right, do you have 500 a year or what's the situation? Do you have an inheritance? Oh no, you're impoverished." Oh.
I gotta say, again, this is going to be fun for everybody, including me. But Madame Askew has demonstrated the classic archetypal pairing with a Byronic hero, which is a sunshine cinnamon roll. Often the chaotic sunshines in particular, very popular. So the himbo, or the herbo, or the theybo is a very good pairing. A thembo? Thembo is very good. Excellent. A thembo is a very good pairing because the Byronic hero would like to tragically swan about and try to save such little tortured creatures who are at the whims of a very dark and doomy world, which the Byronic hero sees, but of course the sunshine does not see.
Only rainbows!
Yes.
It's definitely you really need a damsel type character.
You do.
You need someone who needs to be rescued to motivate them to improve themselves to then do
Yes,
the thing.
the protective instinct is the only really strong instinct that Byronic hero has that
So
can
they
be
need
activated.
a dog.
They are a dog.
Yeah.
That's
Who rescued who?
You rescued the little kitten. Yeah.
Meow meow.
A competent counterpart is going to end in tragedy, probably. Like, especially if the competent counterpart ends up saving themselves. And the Byronic hero is like, I'm no good here. I must throw myself into the ocean.
Mean, that's like
despair.
To get us to like look at it. That's like one of the biggest challenges with the. This is really telling my media consumption.
Go for it.
The Bella Edward dynamic is really challenged by this because
Yes.
Bella isn't exactly a damsel.
She's also a Byronic
She's
hero.
also
It's
a
two
Byronic
Byrons.
hero. It's Byron and Byron hanging out.
So the sex is great, but like, oh my god, that is the most like, I don't know, lackluster, boring relationship ever. Because they're just gonna dwell together. Who wants to be in the room with those
They
people?
wallow in their immortality.
Wow.
Madame Askew, we're not generally big fans of this particular archetype for ourselves.
I mean, I grew out of that phase. I graduated from being 16 into being an adult.
You know who's a fan of this archetype? Teenagers. Teenagers are a fan of this archetype. They really love Byronic. They love it.
I also think there's something really valuable that the Byronic female lead has some dynamicism that is not possible with Byronic male leads, which I think is really interesting. There's a whole sort of like the way in which queerness can sort of intersect with that Byronic, like sort of tortured element.
There are a lot of Byronic queers.
Yeah.
Let's be real, because like a Byronic hero always has daddy issues or mommy issues or whatever.
A sad backstory.
Yes.
Kicked out of their home as a youth.
This is awfully familiar. It's an awfully familiar story. I, in answer to your question, which of mine are Byronic, the only one I can think of off the top of my head, and you have to remember I have over 30 books and I forget all my characters, is Felix. And Felix is wildly popular as a secondary lead. A lot of people suffer from secondary lead syndrome with him because it's in my YA series. So obviously, we're all gonna love the dark, tortured rich boy who has very big daddy problems. And I wrote him from the get-go as I was poking fun at the love triangle in that book because it's clear that's the worst possible outcome for Sophronia is Felix, like always was. But that's because I'm poking fun at the Byronic hero with him, and I didn't even realize I was doing it.
He is so perfect in that role because it's a wonderful.
He even wears eye makeup.
Yeah, but it's also like a very wonderful lampooning of that experience. What about Channing? Our Channing.
Oh, he does have a really tortured backstory. Originally I wrote him just as a plain old asshole, though. And then I was like, well, it's gonna be really fun to try to redeem an asshole.
You redeemed him pretty well.
Thank you. But I did have to give him a tragic backstory, right? Like, in order to explain how big of an asshole he is, he has to have some real baggage, which is a very Byronic solution to the problem. But I don't know that I would necessarily call him a Byronic.
Maybe he's just a little bit tortured, not tortured, but sensitive under his presence.
I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that we will say, and that Madame Askew and I discussed at length, is that there's a lot of crossover for all of these categories because it's really a bunch of traits and not memes, but not the literary memes. Tropes. I was like, the word I was looking for is meme, but for book.
Well, this one edges into an extremely popular trope at the moment, which I call outsourced moral compass, which is when
you
have...
love that
I
shit.
love this shit so much. Which is where you have a literal psychopath, like somebody who does not fit into a dominant culture or the culture that you're writing within or that the conceits of the genre is presenting. And they kind of realize it. They're usually, brilliant psychopath types. And so they have to find another character who will tell right from wrong for them, and usually then sick them at the wrong in an assassin kind of way. because they realize that if they're left on their own, they will simply just kill everything indiscriminately. So their one moment...
Weaponize your boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Your one moment of clarity is that. It's very popular. This is all ties to like the who hurt you trope, which is having its moment on TikTok at the moment. But yeah, and it means that they care, but they only care about one person in all of humanity. This is very juicy to write too, because if you decide to kill that one person, then your psychopath can go entirely psychopathic, but the readers are on their side, and so you can have real doom and destruction, which is again what they tried to do, I think, with Darth Vader, but did not succeed at doing.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the biggest challenges for Star Trek, Star Wars as a mode, is that they don't make their villains. They try really hard to sympathize their villains, but the villain's behavior is so like it's too much, and it's not informed by their like. Anakin as a character is really frustrating for lots of people, me included, because of he says he loves Padme so much, but it doesn't reflect in his behaviors or thinks about what Padme might think about any behavior or choices.
They could have tried gynecology, but I know they have starships and they fly through space, so gynecology is just too complicated for them. How hard?
Yeah.
Poor Anakin.
I think that's like the problem, is like that there's this big component of the writing is sexist in ways that make it difficult for those characters to be redeemed in the way that the book, the narrative is intending them to.
So whilst we are dressed as Starfleet characters, I don't know if we are criticizing Star.
We are talking morality for the galaxy.
What is our next category, Grand Arbiter?
Oh, I'm so happy that you're ready to move along.
I am always ready to leave behind Byron.
Yeah, it's not our fave, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to one of Madame Askew's favorites.
Oh, here we go.
It's not her favorite, but it is likely the one that she is. So,
oh, here we go.
So this is the servant or supportive hero.
I love a servant.
They're the kind of like always taking care of you type heroes. They're selfless or self-sacrificing. They tend to be reliable, and they let the main character take the lead. So the examples that we have on the list are Samwise Gamgee, with the implied homosexuality there. Superman, Wesley from The Princess Bride, Gabrielle, Maylin from Shadow and Bone, and Peeta from Hunger Games.
Oh, very good polls. Yeah, you were.
That last one, I thought of it just now.
Yeah,
Good call.
Good calls. Yeah.
So the negative things are going to be like passivity is a big problem. They don't want to take actions on their own.
They have to be told what to do.
They have to be told what to do. They have secret expectations of you that they don't tell you. Like they have thoughts and dreams and fantasies about things that they're not going to express to you. They have places their love interest on a pedestal, which is racked with problems. And their personal growth is really inhibited by their love interest's existence.
They tend to remain flatline as characters.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Is that facts?
Yes.
Effects.
It seems
Facts?
to me that these people are just shatteringly codependent.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
That's very sexy.
Very,
to a lot of
very,
people.
very attractive to some people. And I think it's also important to remember that this is like a very normal experience. Like the whole trope of like, well, we grew up together is marinates in this particular space.
True.
It's the whole like,
Asian dramas love this one.
they love this one.
I would call it China's favorite hero, quite frankly, in the C-drama verse. I can't even name a C-drama where there hasn't been the dude character.
Well, I do think the other fun thing about this is that if you pair a servant hero with a Byronic hero, it's very bad times for that servant hero.
Sure is. Yeah.
Poor servant hero.
Another way to look at this is caring dom is another kind of component of this.
Yeah, I think that this can like leak into other ones. Like the more competent servant heroes are going to be like your sort of like your. Who am I thinking of?
Well, Lyle is a.
Lyle's a really good
Good
example,
character.
but I was also thinking of Madame LeFou.
Oh yeah.
Because Madame LeFou, like, while she is not getting the romantic component, she is doing all the work.
She is slightly psychopathic, though,
Yes,
right?
that's
Like
true.
she's a little bit like you don't know where if she has. I think about carrying heroes as having a solid moral foundation. I wouldn't call her that, but yeah, it's often betas. Yeah, in me, like I think of them as sort of beta personality types because I think of werewolf dynamics. But yeah,
I think
this is probably one of my favorites to write. I gotta say, I would say there's one of these in every single one of my books.
I would also say that, like, there are the sensitive that. Oh, go ahead.
So I was wondering if you would consider Spock from Star Trek
Oh, you certainly could, yeah.
this category, because I mean,
But I would say Spock is probably going to fall under competence.
I think he is a competent hero.
He is
because
competent,
It's
yeah.
important. We will get to it, I promise. But there's a lot of components to Spock that make him a competent hero. The most important one being his obliviousness to romantic intention,
Yeah.
which is like really important to the competent hero's substructure. And it's very hard for me. He is a caretaker in that regard, and there's lots of caretaking as part of the competent hero construction. But he's doing it as a noble and moral duty he has to literally everyone and everything in his life, where the support servant hero, it's only their person that they're going to be wanting to do this kind of sacrifice for.
Or their family network.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or they're like, they have to be close. They don't have
Their
the
group.
same, they have to have the group dynamic with that person to legitimize it.
Yes.
Yes, we're giving you a space.
Oh, good. I was like, just listening to you two riff, and I'm like, yes, that's all right. Sorry. So I was not prepared.
Any more questions or interests or comments on our interpretations of servant heroes? Because we're going to move into the I would say kind of the fun one.
Oh,
my God, I love this one.
I have a question, because you gave examples, Grand Arbiter, and they're very good examples, and we worked on them together, so I'm like on board.
We were sitting on the Zoom call.
We did, we
Together.
zoomed and everything. But Gail, my darling,
Yes.
my dove, my delight, yes. Who's one of your favorite, servant heroes?
This is the thing is, I mean, you named really, really good ones, but I struggle to identify them in pop culture often. But they are often side characters. So I'm a big K-drama consumer, and I think in a lot of K-dramas, second lead is often the caring, and rather than because K-dramas dabble in the other tropes for heroes more than China does. But yeah, there's a sort of a nobility to the caretaker character that I really enjoy personally. I think I like to collect these in life, this personality type. Shocking. So I'm very, very sort of attracted to them on all levels as characters. So they people my universe. Partly because I think they tend, as people who have this facet of their personality actually make the world go round, right?
I mean, like, yes.
They're the
empathy-
function of the group.
Empathy
Right?
is important.
Yeah,
for the
exactly,
world to work.
exactly. So to me, they're very special. Yeah. So my favorites in this particular genre, like, and I don't say this very often, are probably the ones I write. They're my favorites.
They are
my
pretty
own
tasty.
characters.
They're very juicy, and I like them.
Yeah, and I would call Facts for whoever
That's
asked
what I was gonna say.
caring.
Vex
hero.
falls into this category so hard. He was like built in the category.
Do
But
you
the-
need noodles? Do you need a hot drink? Can I get my ladle and get you some food?
But his problem, of course, is that he's recruited to the cause, so to speak, as a competency. So his growth arc as a character through 3 books is shaking off competency for caring and realizing that that's actually his strength. Because when he initially enters, he thinks his strength is competency, but he is caring, and he thinks that as a weakness because of his Byronic background. So a little mix of everything, I guess.
He's a complex character. Would you like to move on?
Yes, let's dive into our favorite little juicy nugget
I mean,
coming up.
this one is some interesting ones because this is the one that actually we had the most debates about.
Oh, I'm ready.
So the next one is the himbo hero. The himbo hero is enthusiastic, unburdened by shame, uncomplicated, and my last bullet is hot.
Also, often a slut.
Yes.
I also watch a lot of BL, and
That's why I say unburdened by shame.
yeah, the bisexual slut himbo is an absolute archetype at this juncture. Like,
I like to invite them to tea
There's some
regularly.
There's some downsides. They're low risk but low depth. They can be real shallow folk, which is okay. They're flighty, oblivious of like risk and of like the needs and responsibilities of others, and they tend to be, in many cases for readers, a fantasy fulfillment of a certain kind.
oh yeah.
And so they're like so unrealistic in their existence. It's so like there's lots of ways in which they're like the DNA for manic pixie dream girls lives in this. Yeah. Our examples are Finn the Human, which I thought was a cute one. Bingley from Pride and Prejudice is Madame Askew's. Jason from The Good Place. Scorpia from She-Ra. And Thor, the Avenger from Marvel. One of the interesting things that we discussed was a distinction between himbo, shebo, theybo, and bimbo. Because bimbo and shebo are not the same. They are fundamentally different. They share some DNA in that all of the bows do, but they are not the same. We had to have a conversation where Madame Askew was like, "Oh, who was it that you suggested?"
I suggested the house bunny from the House Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, she's a delightful himbo.
And my thoughts were, that's not a himbo, that's a bimbo, and that's not a problem. That's just a different thing. And there is a weird sort of gendered thing going on here with gender, because there are certain kinds of behaviors that are like himbo behaviors, regardless of
Regardless of gender.
regardless of gender. Like, there are ways in which the way that Scorpia interacts but the world is very similar to the way that like some of these other characters do, and the gender is less relevant.
From a writerly perspective, almost always, if you're not going purely superficial comedy, if you're writing for character evolution and depth, this character almost always masks pain. Right? They're usually performatively silly. I mean, you can. I get, this is really funny because I now realize that we're talking about all these different heroes and I stuck them all in Fex's pantheon. It's like, oh, well, okay.
I mean,
because
yes.
Miss It, right, and Beryl.
Miss It and Beryl are.
But Miss It is very performatively flighty, right? Like he's using it as a weapon. He's weaponized his, right? His fragile. Vibrating.
You need to make yourself.
But Beryl is just genuinely this.
Yes.
Like Beryl is genuinely loving, and she probably does have depth. We never got to it in the course of the books, but she's genuinely just.
She has depth. She has a deep respect for her people and wants to do honor by them.
And wants to do the best that she can. She's very earnest.
She's very earnest.
Himbos can be very earnest. It's very endearing to write.
I think that's part of the attraction of what that like.
But Lord Unkledoma is also a himbo.
Oh, he's the.
But that is completely weaponized himboism, right?
Yeah, it's a weapons grade.
Yeah,
weapons grade
himbo.
Also,
he knows what he's doing.
I would argue that it's one of his greatest strengths as a character, but also one of his greatest weaknesses.
Oh yeah, because he can never get over it. It's the protection that he has.
And he can't let go. Like
never.
It's his whole. It's because I do think there's like earnest himbos.
Seem familiar to you in any way?
Oh no, because just so we're clear, I am not this archetype in that regard. You may think I'm not the archetype. I am not this archetype. I'm slightly too self-aware and too willing to drop down barriers for this archetype.
Yeah, that's the thing with the himbo characters. They're the hardest to break and to evolve because the audience likes the himboism so much because it's so funny and comedic and light and bright that if you reveal the core, you take that away from your readers or your watchers, and they're going to start to dislike that character as a result. So
it's also sort of why you're not you're a fan of the trope, but you're not necessarily that's not what you look for when you're like, I want to read about a man, woman, or person that I find attractive, Madame Askew. You're not that into this particular trope.
Oh, well, I'm not going to wed a himbo. I'm not going to make a lifetime with a himbo. I might have a stable of himbos that I visit.
Nay!
I'll be like, it's Monday, it must be time to meet Marguerite.
You know who might fall into this category as well is Bingley from Pride and Prejudice.
Totally Bingley.
Yeah.
Bingley is such a himbo.
Yeah.
Because
he's on the list.
He's a golden retriever.
Yeah.
Prancing through that book.
Yes,
and
that's
he's just
who they
so,
are.
he's so oblivious to
But
all
honestly,
the machinations.
they would make very good partners. Kind of like a himbo. It's there's much less work.
I think that if himbos were more real, I think that would be the case. But I think that's
true.
The problem is that as an archetype of the archetypes, I see all of these kinds of things in the world. The himbo as an archetype goes sour like that in real life because exposure to there is nothing attractive about a person in your real life who cannot be serious about your feelings, about what's going on on around you?
Speak for yourself.
I do think that the lovely thing about Bingley, who is like a quintessential himbo, like literary, Jane Austen bringing it home, is that he knows when to be like, no, dear, it's going to be all right. I am aware that this is
We
bad.
have money.
We have money. We'll be fine. That's so delightful, actually. I love a Bingley as a himbo. He's like, and I have estates and servants, and it'll be fine. Don't you worry.
I think the real problem is that a lot of the himbos that we know in our lives, they don't really have money. That's really the problem.
They're impoverished himbos. They're waiting for their moment.
Because I question, like, I do also think that there's also the performative element is really indicative to our real life. Like, all of those folks on the internet who are doing, like, Instagram model type himbo behavior, that is all so cultivated as a brand and not, like, as a real person. And so it's harder for me to sort of be like, is this even who you really are? Or is this just a brand you're trying to sell me?
Isn't that the way with all the heroes and
Yeah,
all the
Yes,
dating?
exactly. I think the Byronic ones lead. I think they all lean into that.
What I would say is that the himbo is more prevalent in, not in popular culture, but in our real lives as a trope of people selling themselves on the market. People make stories about their lives as Byronic heroes, but you're not going to see those folks like at the same quantity.
So we get a slight version of this in romance in particular, which is the rake version. And the way you solve for this in a writer capacity is through redemption or reformation. So you save the himbo from his own himboism, you save the rake from his own slutty ways, you know, morality, yada yadas. But yeah, that is
Get a ring on his finger.
you stick them on, or give them a child, which is that you know, like give them like a core networked family, and unfortunately, this is also prevalent in real life. One of the conversations I've had over the years with my male author friends, male author friends, has been them coming into feminism, but not until they have a daughter. And you're like, oh, you had to, like, you didn't have a wife, a sister, or a mother, or anything else before that?
Or friends.
It took your spoo fertilizing an egg for you to, like, realize that like, anyway, sorry about that.
Don't apologize. You're perfect.
Which is just to say that the like classically the rake himbo kind of can be redeemed with a child, which represents him furthering his own network into domesticity.
And anchoring, right? That's the anchor.
Yeah, because they are flibberty gibberties, which is fun to write, but it needs to be pulled in.
Gail, do you have a favorite himbo or one of? Because you like a himbo.
I love a himbo. They're really fun to write. I'm a comedy author, right? So they're fun. Hold on, I have to think. I'm thinking mostly in terms of like K-drama himbo characters. There's a ridiculous but popular manhwa-based show called True Beauty, which is a makeover arc. And basically the second lead, and this is one of those that I have terrible second lead syndrome. The second lead is a total like bad boy himbo, and it's
Too
wonderful.
tasty.
He's fucking great. It's a great character. Yeah, so that'd be one of my polls.
Do you think that, so here is the question that I've been thinking about is, do you think that, because like, do you think that part of the reason that there's such challenges for the, not just because they're split, but do you think?
Well, I mean, sorry, I'm gonna say something. Really?
Yeah.
Well, you get.
My thoughts left the building. That's fine.
I think I would call Dimity a himbo as well. I do use a best friend Ivy. Like
100%.
I it's like the ultimate, right?
I think that one of the best, just because I'm currently there, I literally closed the book on that page this week. I think that's actually one of the strongest parts of book 4, the Parasol Protectorate, is Ivy getting her flowers for her actual talents and skills.
Yeah.
Like that is one of the best parts.
But that's my favorite thing to do with a himbo is set them up for a really long period of time. I did this with Agatha too, where like actually they're competent. They just don't feel the need to prove that to anybody. They're just like quietly competent with a layer of jocularity over it, and like. That's the best.
They're competent, but they're not.
They don't care that much about it.
They're competent.
They'd
but
rather
they're
have fun. Exactly.
They don't have fun.
Exactly.
They're competent, but they're not out in the Prussian tea-dueling camps crawling through the mud to get the biscuit. They're like, I don't have to be that tough. I could just bake you some biscuits. That'd be fine, right? We can have a good time.
This is why Dimity's book is one of my favorite novellas that I got to write, because where she goes into a vampire hive and redecorates it, and it saves the hive, the redecoration. But
it's a fantastic one. I love that
it's
one.
really fun,
It's so
but
great.
it's fun because she's just like, yes, peril, but also throw cushions. And she finds herself, a ex-ballet dancer hero who's confident and who's like, oh, okay, I'll trail after this person and make sure the chaos is modulated.
Yes. So,
You have a question?
Yeah, so you had Thor on your list.
Oh my God.
And I'm not seeing it.
okay,
But he's
so
He's hot. I mean,
So
hot
he's
is
super
the-
that's
hot.
why he is. He's hot.
Arguably
Deeply shallow.
deeply shallow and oblivious to the world around him. Arguably, that's why his relationship with what's her name? Jane fails. Is his obliviousness to reality and his responsibilities to her, and that's himbo. 100%.
It's very clever because he's
go
a
through
god.
all of his story arc, because there's also the loss of his family, of his
Yes.
world.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, those are all relevant components. But when we're talking about this specific component, we're also talking about even from his initial entry, his relationship with Jane is one of, there's a weird power dynamic there, where he is not only a god, not only is he incredibly powerful, but he doesn't always trust Jane's intelligence or knowledge of the world he's part of, which is sort of why the problems in Dark World happen, is because of his failure to understand how much she actually knows and sort of not recognizing her strength. I mean, that's why in Battle for the Gods he has such a challenge with her, because he can't imagine her as competent, strong, and powerful. And that's not because he's sexist explicitly, it's because he's fully unaware of her as a person.
He's a capricious god, right?
Yeah.
He's like an ancient Greek god where, it's Zeus running around fucking people, but slightly modulated for the palate of the modern age. I think the thing you're getting at is that from a writer perspective, the thing you have to do to a himbo if they don't have a core background of tragedy,
You must break them.
is you have to break them. Yeah, you have to shatter their illusions of life, right? And that's the meme on the internet is torture the cinnamon roll, but that's really what we're getting at here, is grounding the himbo.
We have another question.
Would Tristan be considered in that category?
Tristan.
Tristal.
Tristal.
Oh, in the fifth gender.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. The reveal is the tortured backstory for him, right? That he is exiled from his planet. You kind of know that he's exiled. He is genuinely enthusiastic about the new culture he's been absorbed into because it's the one that has decided that he feels has accepted him. But that's because they don't understand him, because an entire world that understood him rejected him, right? But you also learn that, gimme on a 6-year-old book, everybody. But you also learn through the course of the narrative that he in a way chose that. He chose exile. So, which is tragic, but also, yeah, so, but he, like Dimity, for me, when I write these characters, I like the himboism. I like their cheerful, superficial, but like sort of genuine enthusiasm for life. And so I don't tend to break them. So I pair them up with somebody who can facilitate them still keeping, to a certain extent, their illusions about the pleasantness of reality. And that's why I hand them Crispian or I hand them Dre, because those are the kinds of personalities that can care for them and make sure they, aren't shattered. But I write romantic comedies, so I get to do that. I don't have to break them.
And they're going to have a happy ending, which is the best.
Right. With the Marvel Universe, that's not guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, not even not guaranteed. It is not possible.
Yeah.
So, happy endings not possible if your narrative goes on forever. Eventually something bad will happen to you. You can't.
Or your partner.
Or your partner.
Partners,
There's just no way for that to happen. And so that's he's tortured, but he's not tortured in the same, a tortured hero requires a certain level of self-blame around it, that he blames himself a little bit, but not in the kind of ways where he takes bad behavior and makes these bad decisions, but they're also, I wouldn't say that his core element is Byronic in any kind of way, or any tortured in that way. It's not his motivation. He still thinks he's too great, right?
He's flatlined.
Still likes himself so much that
I'm a little surprised they haven't killed him, actually. He's flatlined in such a way that from a writer's room perspective, I would have killed his character by now, because he's boring. Which brings us to kind of the flaw, consequences, whatever, of writing in an unfettered universe like Marvel or similar, from a purely writer's room perspective. No matter what you do because of this, because your character arcs, characters have gone through their arcs already, you're still dealing with standard tropes and archetypes, it turns into a soap opera. It will always turn into a soap opera, which means it's become serialized. So all of you out there who are very invested in the Marvel Universe understand that it will never have a satisfying ending. It is because it's too much of a cash cow. So what you're watching now is Days of Our Marvel Lives, everybody. Just with villains and big explosive powers.
How the Tesseract turns.
Exactly.
Yes. So we're going to move into the fourth category if you're ready.
I'm so ready because
Okay.
whilst I love a himbo, boy howdy, we're getting close to my favorite.
Okay, so next is the sensitive hero. The sensitive hero is a slightly different character than the servant or suffering character. Basically, a sensitive hero is emotionally vulnerable, understands your pain, they're heavily empathetic. They have a desire to make things better for others because they couldn't save themselves, and they have deep, deep, deep-seated humility. So this is the downsides of these ones are, of course, they're martyrs. They have low self-esteem. They can be self-destructive, both physically and emotionally, and they can't heal themselves. They still can't heal themselves.
And they make bad choices.
They make bad choices.
Bad choices.
So, and
So it's meaty to write because they make terrible choices,
And so-
but understandably terrible choices. Give me some examples.
So the examples that we have on this list, and these are some great ones in my opinion. So it's Dora from She-Ra. We may have a little bit of a She-Ra problem. There's just a
It's
lot
not
of
a problem.
good women in that show that are
It's not
very
a problem.
relevant.
It's a win. It's
Yes.
an opportunity.
The Doctor from Doctor Who,
Oh,
particularly 10, but all of them can suffer from this problem. Aziraphale can really fall into this one.
Oh, very good.
Orpheus, the mythological character, and Aragorn. We put Aragorn here.
Oh, interesting choice.
We chose to put Aragorn here after a lot of discussion.
Because I was like, he's competent. Have you seen what he can do with a sword? Because I have.
So what I think is interesting about Aragorn is falling into this category. And part of what makes him fall into this category is both he wants to be a servant really, really badly to
Arwen.
He,
The elves, really.
to the elves.
To all of them.
All of the elves.
Why choose?
He definitely wants to be a servant, but he also recognizes that that's like not a thing that he's allowed to do.
You wouldn't pull Faramir for this one? Because I'd pull Faramir for
Oh,
this one.
I would pull Faramir too, but
Sure,
I would
absolutely.
also argue that lots of Lord of the Rings characters fall into this one because
Well, Tolkien's very invested in noble sacrifice.
he's obsessed with noble sacrifice, and also he's obsessed with one of the things that I find really one of the most important and valuable things of Lord of the Rings as a piece is that masculinity is defined by its softness in Lord of the Rings. The strength of the characters is defined by their ability to care for each other and the people around them. And it's something that I regularly, like when I engage with these media, like, yes, Aragorn can use a sword really good, but what really he did was carry the hobbits himself up that mountain, right? Like, there was like, ensuring that, like, recognizing that he had to make a choice between going with, when he's making that choice between going with, to try to chase down Sam and Frodo, or to try to save
Merry and
Merry
Pippin.
Pippin. He makes the choice to save Merry and Pippin because he recognizes that he recognizes that they need him, and that is the choice that he has to make in that moment. And I think that makes him fall. I think that Faramir definitely falls into this category as well, but I think that Faramir suffers from, he leaves Byron, like he leaves tortured really hard. And I think that Aragorn is less tortured in some ways, that he's not tortured by his past, he just has to choose to wield he has to accept his power, is what it boils down to for that character. And that character, he's more likely to be a martyr. He doesn't want to be a martyr with power. He just wants to he wants to make sure that the people around him are safe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all know this, but I'll say it anyway. Tolkien's entire trilogy is a commentary on the class system, right?
Yeah.
And a justification for the rule of the aristocracy and nobility.
Yeah.
So all of the power players have to act like the officers in the British use of the word officer, which means you have bought your commission, which means you are the moneyed versus the privates in World War I and then World War II. And the justification for the choices that are made by the aristocrat of British society. That's what he's doing.
Yes.
So all of his aristocratic characters have to behave in a way that honors the hobbits,
They
right?
have to
The
be noble.
little man.
They have to
Yeah.
be noble, and they can't not be. And that's sort of, the sensitive hero falls into this sort of deeply understands the choices that they're making and makes them anyway.
I'm gonna.
You can fight me.
I'm not gonna fight you. I'm gonna counter with the writerly perspective on this, or the film writer perspective on this, which is this is the ingenue character. It's just that we are looking at it. We tend to think of ingenue as feminine, but this is the masculine ingenue, or ingenue in general. And essentially, what this can come across as, especially to a modern audience, is naivete and youth. So this character and this character's arc is usually better served in younger stuff, so young adult pieces, even middle grade, and then also series that are being sold to younger generations as well, because we jaded people tend to find the ingenue or this kind of character a little one note and a little exhausting
And cloying.
and a little playing. Yeah.
I mean, Adora is straddling that line. I mean, She-Ra is not necessarily like young person. It's certainly good for older people too, but it was meant for more of a youthful audience, and so she does sort of inhabit a bit of that ingenue space.
Yeah. They learn. They have to learn about the world in order to get over the idea that they alone can save it, right? Like that's going to be their growth arc most of the time, is unfortunate bitch slapped with reality.
They learn they need a team. They can't do it on their own.
Exactly.
They need to go on a heroine's journey.
Moving along.
We have a question.
A controversial candidate?
We love controversy.
Also, you can raise your hand if you have opinions or just want to talk. We're here for you.
But Spike and Buffy?
Oh, Spike.
So, I think
Very
Spike,
interesting. He has multiples.
he has multiples. I think he really easily falls into Torture Hero Town.
No, that's what he wants to be.
Is that what he wants to be?
That's how he starts as Byronic,
Yes.
right? That's how he enters, and then he gets human,
Yeah.
and he becomes an ingenue because he got humanity,
okay.
right? Like he literally swaps. That's a very interesting point, because I think you're right. Like season 5 or whatever it was when he got human, he suddenly became an ingenue, and he's like feckless, and everyone has to take care of him. And then he becomes a tragic heroine.
That's true.
Oh,
Yes.
Spike.
Well,
And then he comes back on Angel, untragic again.
yeah.
And as a new character, I'm sure they gave him another personality facelift.
I mean, the real challenge with those kinds of like characters is that they I think one of my favorite tropes is the heel face turn revolving door. It's the character who keeps like, I'm gonna get better, nope, gonna get better, nope. It just continues that circle.
Listen, I'm gonna love Spike for always. He is my favorite.
I do
so
not see the
I'm
appeal,
on
but
board
that
with
is
this
on you.
whole premise. But one of my favorite things about Spike that I think leans into this is that once upon a time, before he got the bite, he was like doing bad poetry in like a purple velvet frock coat, and he's just like, I'm a poet, I want to be Byronist. And no, you are not, darling. You need a well, you need to, say fancy things and throw petals. You're just not that tragic.
Now I'm thinking about Firefly, and I think about all the different ones we've got on board that ship, because Jade is our himbo, right? Never gets redeemed, stays a himbo the whole time.
So we're gonna unless there's any more thoughts, we got some time. We want to get to. We've talked around it a lot. We're gonna get to Madame Askew's favorite.
Here we
the
go.
Confident hero. Okay, so confident heroes, good qualities: self-reliant, experts, passionate, helpful. Bad qualities: risk-averse,
Single-minded.
single-minded, romantically oblivious, intimidating, and they dislike change.
Oh yeah.
They are entirely resistant to change.
But then they find a very chaotic cinnamon roll and changes their life.
So our
Whether they like it or not.
Our examples are Darcy, because we can't not include him. But he is not a Byronic. He's a competent.
He is, but what is he competent at?
Money.
Rich.
Being rich. Yes.
Being rich. We
I
have,
would-
we have the CEO billionaire romance.
Okay,
and it's
here's what I would
first
also
forefront.
say. He's not just rich. He is
He's good at being
he's
rich.
good at being rich.
My
He's-
golly.
He's also politically savvy. Like, he knows how to navigate the politics of being rich.
You know, he's also really good at saving young women on the verge of ruination. He
He's
looks
like-
good on horseback. And he wears
And wet.
white shirt.
And wet. Wet. Our other examples are Zoe Washburn,
Speaking of Firefly.
Temperance Brennan from Bones, Geralt of Rivia, and Worf. Yes, so those were all our competent heroes. Highly skilled, kind of not really aware of or interested in the romance thing until it is stumbled upon it. Yes. Yeah.
DeLorean, very competent.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
good.
certainly a competent hero. What we did when we were trying to limit because we were trying to figure out how to pick examples, we tried to limit it to people who had romantic interests that were clearly defined. And so we were like, all these people would fall into this, but let's focus on the people who have partners.
I mean, I still have hopes that the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan and
They
a
would
whole legion
Okay,
of
just so we're
bisexual
clear, that is an
Mandalorians.
awful pairing.
Whatever. I
You can live that life.
The police procedural suspense thriller, which is what the Mandalorian is based off of, essentially, like our narrative, predicates there must be a competent main character. Like that's the whole point of those shows, right? Art in The Bourne Identity, whatever it is. Usually that competency is extreme violence in the case of the suspense thriller genre, but that main character's defining trait is their competency. And if they're going to have a growth arc, it's in realizing that that's not what they are entirely. Right?
I think that's what makes the Bones love interest so weird, is that it's competent and competent together.
No, it's himbo.
I guess
Totally. It's competent and himbo. It's the same thing with Castle.
Yeah, I guess that's
your
true.
time, I have a wrap-up question
Yes.
Yeah.
for you in the last 2 minutes of the panel.
Thank you.
Out of the tropes, which will you screw? Which one will you marry?
Oh, fuck, marry, kill.
Okay. Let's say send on a boat to somewhere else. Send on a boat to somewhere
Well,
else.
I'm an author. I could kill them if I wanted to.
We recognize the sharpness of your pen.
Fuck. No. Fuck himbo. Marry kindness. What did you call that one?
Sensitive.
Sensitive.
Sensitive or servant?
Servant. Marry servant.
Okay.
Yeah. Sensitive is way too much work for me. And kill Byron.
Oh, okay. Tortured, you're dead. I'm sorry. There's nothing about that is interesting to me. Too much work. I'm definitely also fucking himbo because, like, why wouldn't you? I don't think I could. I would choose multiples because why wouldn't I? But I would say in my life I have also ended up with servant as well.
You totally married him too.
I totally ended up with servant too.
And who would you kill?
Oh,
Fire.
no, torture. No, I
Yeah, that's
no
true.
interest.
Yeah, no, I would definitely send a tortured hero off on the long ship
On the boat.
to Venus or something. I'm also here for that himbo energy on a, assignation with my ankles.
Although competency is in physical sex work or whatever, then I'll go with competent.
No,
Sure.
I'm so here for it, the competent hero. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll go with that flavor right there.
Because that's the upside of competent heroes, is that when they've decided to focus on you, you become an aspect of their competency.
Yeah,
and
I'd
they're
like
gonna-
that tool belt to be at my service.
I would argue that that's what Andrew is actually.
I was wondering which one you would pick for him.
So
Little
Lord
bit of
F.
A and
Flint
B.
is definitely, he's too confident. I actually think he's, like, if we talk about our love story, he's definitely not a servant hero. He is absolutely a
But
competent
he
hero.
became servant hero because that's his competency for
Yes,
you, in order
yes.
to compensate for your relationship.
To compensate for the
And so
cost
where
of
do we
dealing
get
with
the
me.
other half of this conversation? When does that happen? When are we talking about villains?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
What a good question, Eve Riot, Cryptid, and social media maven. Tomorrow we're talking about queer-coded villains.
Dun dun dun.
And
Dun,
so
dun,
you
dun.
should join us.
And this
because
is
it'll be fun.
And that one's going to be a little less structured. It's a lot more open questions and debate and discussion.
And that's at 4
Oh,
in Ballroom F.
You're so good.
Yeah.
thank you, Eve.
Thank you.
But we hope you've enjoyed
Us talking about heroes with you today, and we hope we've given you something to think about. And if you're writers out there, something to write about, and pick your favorite hero or hero archetypes.
And take him home with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, please check out D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Ragnarok Enroll a Scion Hero to Ragnarok Story. Also, check out our Patreon page for more content and behind-the-scenes things, as well as joining us for a one-shot game or two.